Meet your brain. Weighing in at about 3 pounds, this single organ accounts for about 20% of your body's blood, oxygen, and energy usage. The brain houses 100 billion neurons, with each neuron having somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 synapses, or connections to other neurons. Every thought, every action, and every memory is managed and stored in these neural pathways. What does this mean? Well, every brain is unique and uniquely organized. Yet historically, schools have educated students as if they had identical brains. In the drive to ensure standardized accountability, education has sought not to facilitate learning, but conformity. As the establishment of education systematically disassembles our students' creativity and motivation, students engage with new learning less and less and are not retaining learning in long-term memory. So how do we, the educators, design learning to facilitate this ultimate goal of long-term memory penetration? Well, we have to begin by hijacking their brains. There are basically 2 ways to do this, by providing the brain with a pleasurable experience or a painful one. Unfortunately, the more powerful of the 2 is pain. A teacher can prepare the most incredibly engaging lesson ever, but if the student is experiencing physical, social, or emotional pain, the pain will hold their attention rather than the learning. To stop this from happening, we must begin by ensuring that each student has a safe, risk-free learning environment. So that leaves pleasure as the best way to engage the brains of our students. To make learning pleasurable, it must be relevant, meaningful, and enjoyable. So just ask yourself one simple question. Would I enjoy sitting in my class all day, every day? But remember, every brain is unique. Therefore, when introducing new information, teachers must provide students with multiple entry points to the learning. This means drawing upon students' interests, prior knowledge, and past experiences. Then, students often need multiple solution paths to connect with the new learning. When new information is introduced, the brain has to find a way to reconcile it with prior learning. This process is called cognitive conflict. Teachers often try to shield their students from cognitive conflict because the process can be frustrating. But to truly ensure that the information is mastered, students must be allowed to struggle and resolve their cognitive conflict. So how do we motivate students to endure this struggle? Well, research into cognitive psychology tells us that there are 3 key ingredients to intrinsic motivation. The first is autonomy. Giving students opportunities to make meaningful choices during the learning process gives them a sense of empowerment. The second is connection. This ingredient has 2 pieces. Students need to connect to each other collaboratively and also to the real world. This satisfies a relational need in the brain that helps motivate students. The third is the pursuit of curiosity in the progression towards mastery. This requires a balance between 2 variables, challenge and ability. If the challenge is low and ability is high, the brain becomes bored. If a challenge is too high and the ability is too low, the brain becomes stressed. A balance is needed between the 2. And when the brain finds a challenge that is perfectly balanced with ability, the result is called flow. And it is the most intense enjoyment of learning that the brain can experience. When the 3 ingredients of autonomy, connection, and progression towards mastery are mixed together in the brain, the result is a storm of motivation. But the brain still has 2 other key needs to be able to struggle through and resolve cognitive conflict. The first is activity. If the brain encounters new information in a passive state, the result is passive learning, which has little chance of being encoded in long-term memory. By activating the student's biology through movement and multisensory experience, the brain begins to experience active learning, which is much more memorable. The final ingredient for long-term memory learning is self-reflection. This is the pillar that sustains the student through the struggles of cognitive conflict to translate learning to long-term memory. When these brain-compatible strategies are applied every day in every class, the result becomes exponential. With each passing year, students recall more and more prior learning from long-term memory, and the cycle of learning only grows.